Scream 2022, all the spoilers. She's no Sharon Stone. Get it? What's up, guys? The new Scream movie's finally here. I did the non-spoiler review the other day. Last I checked, like over 10,000 views on that. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate that. But I knew that I would have to do an all the spoilers for this. It's Scream. Of course you're going to do a spoiler review. By the way, I watched this for a second time. I literally just got out of the theater like an hour ago because I wanted to give it a second watch, because I do think Scream movies are fun to watch the second time because it's a different experience. You already know who the killer is. By the way, this is going to be a spoiler review. So if you haven't seen this movie, probably don't want to watch this. First thing I want to say is, has my opinion changed on the movie? And by the way, the first review, I gave it a high humdrum. Okay, that's probably like a 3.5 out of 5. 3 out of 5. That's not bad, okay? I stated that it's a fun movie. And is it still a fun movie? Yes. I still had a blast watching the movie, and I liked watching it knowing who the killers were. Has my opinion changed on the reveal itself? No. I still feel like this is really the first Scream movie that I predicted the killer. You know, I got to put that out there. Like the previous 4 movies, they surprised me. I didn't know who the killer was up until the reveal. And just to take you back, when I saw the trailers for this movie and I saw the cast, and then all of a sudden I said, oh shit, Jack Quaid's in this. Jack Quaid is a very up and coming actor. If you've watched The Boys, you know how charismatic he is and how great he is in that show. And I was like, I would not put it past them to make him the killer. Just because that killer, in the end, thinking back to the first movie, how fun and interesting and even charismatic Stu was, and Billy. You know, it takes a great actor to pull that off. Jack Quaid is that actor in this to be able to pull it off. So immediately I thought, yeah, he's going to be the killer for sure. I guess, you know what, we'll start with that reveal. Why not, right? Let's Tarantino this bitch. But the sidekick, Amber, I will say I cut her a little bit of slack on this second watch, even though I still got a major problem with this killer. One, I still find her pretty forgettable. You know, she just doesn't really stick out for some reason to me. Even though she does give it her all, there's just something lacking about this. And also believability, because she's a very tiny framed person. She's going against Dewey in the middle of the movie, okay? And she's weighted down because she's got this freaking flak vest on. But you're going against a trained cop, and she handles Dewey like it's nobody's business. I think that's the reason why Dewey reminded us that he was stabbed 9 times. Okay, I'll give you that. But still, I don't know. You know, I don't think she could have pulled off taking down Dewey that easily. But that's not my main problem with her. My main problem with her is she's forgettable. She doesn't stick out. You know, I can compare her to Jill from Scream 4. Emma Roberts' performance in that movie, I don't know what it was, but it was just so damn believable because she really sold herself as a psychotic character, especially when she's like, you know, kicking the furniture and slams herself up against the wall. You know, just very memorable stuff. Amber was just this girl that lived in Stu Macher's house, and she met Richie on Reddit. And so they concocted this whole plan because they're super fans, and they were going to create their own story. It would be like a true life type story. Which to me, that's pretty damn thin too, to go that far. And you know what? You could probably poke at all the Scream movies for this to be able to come up with such an elaborate plot, an elaborate scheme to carry this out. But you happen to be just internet fans. It's hard to buy that you could actually pull off something like that. Every cog has to be turning in the wheel, and if one character goes left instead of right, it throws the entire plan off. This particular duo here, I was just like, there's no way they're gonna be able to pull all this off, you know? Now, talking about Richie, because I stated earlier, Jack Quaid played him. I just called it, and this is what I would like to call the obvious slasher. And I've used this term in the past, And what the obvious slasher is it's the first person that you think that's going to be the killer. You know, everything points to this person being the killer. And even Dewey sets that up, stating that, how long have you known him? 6 months. Is he interested in the stab movies? Is he obsessed with the stab movies? You should probably not trust him. That sets you right up for the obvious slasher. Automatically, you're going to think, there's no way that guy's the killer, because they're making it too obvious that he's the killer. And when that guy does end up becoming the killer, that's the obvious slasher. It doesn't happen that often. It's happened in a couple of movies, okay? Terror Train. The guy that you think is the killer, even though that's set up as a whodunit. But most of the time, they go the other way. You know, they go with the other guy because the obvious guy is not the killer. Don't get me wrong, it was still a fun final act. And the thing that really saves it for me is Sam and Tara, especially Sam. This is a great segue going back earlier into the movie. You know, we find out that Sam is actually Billy Loomis's daughter. That is great stuff. That is brilliant. As a matter of fact, every time they were focused on Sam in this movie, I was locked in. Yes, this is what I want. This is the best character in the movie. And that's a great thing too, because this is not the OG cast. You know, this is new blood. But she was such a great character, Sam, that I was like, okay, I'm ready for another Scream movie with just her. You don't even have to bring back the legacy characters. She is so good, and there's that great element of her being Billy Loomis's daughter that you could play around with that, and you could bring back Skeet Ulrich in every movie because he's always there, you know, in her head. By the way, the CGI, I didn't really like the CGI. You know, they should have done what they did with freaking Dr. Loomis in Halloween Kills. Find some guy that looks just like Skeet Ulrich and maybe put a little prosthetic on him, because the CGI really stuck out. And it was kind of distracting, but it was still great to see that character there, to bring back a killer from a previous movie. To me, that was the better twist than the actual ending of the movie. Now, also, the beginning of this movie, I think it is one of the strongest openings of any of the Scream movies, probably since the first movie. And it parallels the first movie. This is a requel, and it parallels everything about the first movie. But unfortunately, everything about the first movie is better than this movie. That's the problem you get into with a requel. You want to at least be as good as, if not better than, aspects of the original. And they do poke fun at that and you know, make fun of the fans and state that you do not want to mess with sacred ground like that because you're going to fall on your face. And to me, ultimately, I don't want to say the movie falls on its face, because that would seem like it was a bad movie, and it's not. It's a fun movie. But for me, it kind of falls in the middle as far as ranking the rest of the franchise, just because of the final reveal. The middle does drag in spots. You know, the whole section with Wes, the character Wes, which that was such a nice thing to honor Wes Craven by naming one of the characters Wes. That was so freaking cool. But the character Wes, which he's a great actor, but he didn't really have much to do in this movie. He's the daughter of Sheriff Hicks. I don't know, there was just something about that whole sequence that felt kind of blah. And I saw that coming a mile away. You know, the Ghostface is setting it up to look like he's going to kill Wes, the son, when once the mother gets there, boom, she gets killed. Saw that coming a mile away. And I know I'm giving a hard time to predictability, but I guess that's just what it is. I like to be surprised in movies, especially a Scream movie. And when I can call every shot along the way, for the most part, I guess that can weight it down a little bit. But yeah, jumping back to the opening, you know, I was talking about how Roger L. Jackson and his voice, his cadence, they started it off like he's just a normal guy. You can tell it's Roger L. Jackson, but it's still like, oh, that's so cool, they've never done this before. He's a normal guy, and then they're just going to kind of bleed into, no pun intended, his more sinister voice. And he's still got it. You know, I've been watching the Scream TV series, and that voice is like the Walmart discount version of the Roger L. Jackson. It's horrible. It's horrible. It's not threatening or scary at all. Roger L. Jackson, man, that's the real freaking deal. That's the steak. And if you didn't have that voice in these movies, then it would probably hurt the movies quite a bit. He's that powerful of a voice. But it's also a nice surprise that Tara actually lives. And you know, that was the plan all along, to not kill her, because they had to get Sam to come back to her because they were separated for 5 years. I do like that stuff. There's some nice twists in the story that work pretty well. Also, the core characters of this movie, I didn't really care for most of them. The only ones I really liked were Sam and Tara, the sisters. Even the OG characters, I loved Dewey. Don't get me wrong, like Dewey gets a great send-off. It is nice that they finally kill one of the legacy characters, and they kill him in such a great way. You know, he goes out in such an honorable way. That's the way you want one of the legacy characters to leave. But unfortunately, on the flip side of that, Sydney and Gail, they really feel like they're just kind of shoehorned in. They're brought in at the end of the movie, and they get to, I guess, kick ass for a little bit, but they're kind of outshined by Sam and Tara, especially Sam, though. Also, one annoying thing is the constant need for "you could be the killer." You know how in Halloween Kills everybody was complaining about "Evil Dies Tonight"? Well, the constant catchphrase in Scream was "you could be the killer," because it seemed like every character amongst that young cast, they kept saying "you could be the killer," or "no, you could be the killer," or "you could be the killer." And I was like, after a while, okay, I get it. Anybody could be the killer. Let's move on. And so I guess closing out the spoiler review for this movie, I guess I just want to wrap it up with the overall idea of the Scream reveal in any of the movies. I think the reason why this reveal works the least for me, and some of the other movies are guilty of this too, is just that when you even the playing field, when all the characters are pretty much on the same level, the reveal almost cancels out itself. Like you don't even care who the killer is. The reveal needs to be somebody that has a heavy stake into the main character of the movie, you know? The main purpose. Going back to like Scream 2 with Billy Loomis's mother. I think that was an interesting reveal because we didn't even know that she was Billy Loomis's mother up until that point. And then we get to see, you know, this really just psychotic character, very narcissistic character, lose her mind. We didn't know any of that stuff until that point. Whereas in this movie, we're fans. That was it. You know, we're just big fans. So at the end of the day, you didn't even care. Even if it was predictable, you still didn't even care. But at the end of the day, it's still a fun Scream movie. I don't think this is like the worst Scream movie, and I don't think it's like way down the totem pole. It doesn't really reinvent the genre, and it's not meant to do that. You know, I think it does what it needs to do. It's a fun Scream movie. Unfortunately, it does have one of the least effective final acts, and the only thing that makes up for that reveal is Sam coming in at the end. Richie, you know, he's telling her, "I didn't get my ending," and she said, "Here it comes," and she slits his throat and she stabs the shit out of him. That was such a badass scene. And then she walks by and she sees like the reflection of her father, which is kind of a weird thing too, because making Billy Loomis like a positive character, almost like a heroic type of character, and like how am I supposed to feel about this? This is kind of strange because he's a serial killer. He killed a lot of people. I guess it's kind of interesting to put the DNA of a serial killer into the protagonist. So sticking with my rating, high humdrum. But if they want to do another Scream movie and just have Sam and Tara in there, I'm all for that, you know, because that takes the series into a new and interesting direction, you know? I don't want the same Scream movie again. So anyway, guys, watch this movie twice, though. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of this movie. Did you watch it twice? Were you like me and you just felt like it was way too predictable? Or did it knock your socks off and you thought it was just a great reveal? Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day, and on Fridays, we do Free For Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on my socials, support me on Patreon, buy me a coffee. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.